Hello and welcome to Waylander's Wandering. And with 10th edition mere days away and the Leviathan box set, I've dug out a bunch of assault intercessors to show you over the next few weeks how I would go about quickly painting a bunch of Space Marines. I will do each of the 10 in a different chapter, and we will begin with this fella that I've base coated white, and I'm going to do him as an Imperial Fist using contrast paints. And the first thing I want to do with this guy is get out the old airbrush and then give him a coat of pink horror just to give myself some into the shade when I put the contrast paint on. And because compressors are kind of noisy, I will do the rest of this off camera while you guys have a cup of tea. With our marine all pinked up, and I'd just like to add that if you don't have access to an airbrush, you could always pinky your guy up with, a brush and just carefully paint over him with some thin down pink horror. Don't let an airbrush or access to an airbrush be a barrier. Saying that, the next step is the dry brushing white to put the zenithal on him. I will be using Pro Acryl Bolt Titanium White. You can use any paint that you choose, and we will get a good old splodge of this on here, because I've got no doubt that I will do the other 9 guys off camera. And again, if you don't want to do this with a dry brush, you can do it with your airbrush. So what I do is I like to wet my dry brush, dab it on a piece of tissue to get most of the moisture out, check on the back of your hand that it leaves a cool feeling but no obvious wet sheen. And using the edge of your brush, take some of your white paint, work it into the bristles, and this is going to be very heavy, more of an overbrush than a dry brush. So starting from the top, working all the way down, we will give our marine a very heavy dry brush, which will leave most of him white, but will also leave the pink in the deep recesses. Now, as you can see, that is a little bit chalky, so my brush is probably a little dry, so I'll damp it again, work some of the wet off, a little bit more paint, test, that looks okay, test on the hand, it's a bit wet. You can usually tell by how it comes on the back of your hand. It's very wet, goodness me. Okay, let's get some more paint on there. That seems better. And still working from the top, down our marine, give him a good old dry brush. As you can see, this is leaving massive areas where I can't get this fat brush in, but fortunately our Army Painter Masterclass brushes do come in 3 sizes. Big fat one, a medium one, and a teeny tiny one. So if you do want to get anything into those smaller areas, get a different size brush. I would advise sticking to the largest brush you can possibly get away with. So let's try with a medium brush. Again, wet it, dab it to get the moisture off more. Better. Get some paint on and dry brush away. And as you can see, because this is a slightly smaller brush, we can get into a few of those nooks and crannies that we couldn't reach before. So I will dry brush this guy, and off camera I will dry brush his 9 friends, and then we will get on with the fun part. With that white dry brush allowed to plenty of time to dry, and avoiding the deeper recesses wherever possible, it is now time to come in with our Citadel Contrast Imperial Fist and start putting this on. Now, because it's contrast paint, we will be using it in quite a heavy-handed manner, but again, because it's contrast paint, that really doesn't matter. All we've got to do is watch out for kind of too much pooling, which will dry and leave ugly effects where it's much darker than other places. But we want it on heavy enough for the contrast effect to work. So it's a little bit horses for courses and judgment here, boys and girls. What I like to do with contrast paints, especially on things with lots of large flat panels like Marines, is only use as much as is necessary for the larger areas, and then put it on slightly heavier around these recess joints. And because we've got that pink underneath, it already starts to dry and leave these areas looking like they've got a nice sort of orangey shade, which is going to save us an awful lot of work later. Like I say, we start off with an area, so we pick, say, a foot to start with, work up, making sure you get plenty in the recesses, not too much on the big flat area so it doesn't pour horribly. So I'll do the bottom of his boot. I don't know if I'm going to change it later. Probably will, but I doubt sure yet, so we'll paint them now. And don't worry at this stage with the yellow about getting into areas that you don't want to be yellow, because really it kind of doesn't matter at this stage, because we're probably going to paint over them again anyway. So I will carry on getting this yellow laid down and bring you guys back in when it has all dried. Now that the yellow's on and has had time to dry, I hope you can see the effect of the highlight and shadow that it has brought up. And I hope that you'll also notice that I've gone over everything that's going to be metallic or black with Mechanica Standard Grey, and everything else that's going to be, air quotes, not yellow, with a white. I use the Pro Acryl Volt Titanium White, but you can use whatever you like, boys and girls. So the next thing will be to start on those black and metallic areas. And for this I'll be using Contrast Black Legion for the black, and Retributor Armour and Ironbreaker for the silver metallics. So I'll start off with the black, because colours before metallics, because we don't want to contaminate our water. So we're using it straight from the pot again. We'll come in kind of careful into the joint there. These are now getting into areas where you definitely want to brace your hands. So elbows on the desk, hands together to form triangles. which will give you the steadiest position and allow you to get in and hit those black areas like so. So I will crack on around the miniature, hitting all the black areas and the metallics, and then we will talk again in a moment. With those black and metallic areas all finished, it is now time to go for the finishing touches. And with that in mind, we will be doing the chest eagle with Citadel Contrast Dunfire Magenta, all the leather work with Citadel Contrast Gorgrunta Fur, the ribbons on the Purity Seal on his back there with Skeleton Horde, and I haven't quite decided on the wax seal yet, but all of his weapons casings are going to be Contrast Blood Angels Red. So I think we will start there. We'll get a bit of the old Blood Angel Red, and being very careful now because we don't want to hit the metallic areas of his gun or his sword that we've finished already. We will come in very gently with some Blood Angel Red straight from the pot, and whilst I'm tempted to say losh it on, we really don't want to be putting it on quite that heavily. Heavy in the basically as heavy as this actually. It's yeah, and the slight translucency of the contrast paint will allow the white underneath to show through. We'll fill in things like these vents on the top of his gun there and give it a little shadow. And hopefully look kind of cool. So I will do these bits and bring you guys back in a little while. And there we have our Imperial Fist tabletop ready. And if you chose to, you could definitely leave him at this stage, base him to match up the rest of your army, and call it quits. But if that's not your thing, you can go that little step further and slap some highlights on, which we would use some Imperial Yellow for the yellow bits, some Dawnstone for the black bits, Wild Rider Red for the red bits, and possibly even for that magenta, and of course Stormhost Silver for the metallics, all the metallics that is, maybe even a very light touch of Baylor Brown on the edges of some scratching on those leather bits to give them a little bit of life. So I'm not a fan of edge highlighting, never have been, probably never will be, but I am experienced enough to know that it can be very effective, and here's how I would do it. I won't take you through every part because it's a very long and tiresome and involved process, but if we look at this raised edge here on his greave, if you take the edge of your brush and just run it along there, that gives you the edge highlight that you're looking for. For an area like below his knee pad there, because there isn't an edge where you can do that. What you do is, or what I do, is come down with the brush, working in as near a vertical motion as I can. And I always, for these kind of things, move the miniature around rather than my painting angle, because you want to be neat and braced. So once more, on prominent edges like this, take the edge side of your brush, just run it across. You want to try and get as fairly thin or as thin as you can. Just run it gently across like so. Move on to the next one. And for those areas where you can't get your brush in, as I showed with this knee pad, again we try and get in and we move along the edge, moving the miniature, not the angle we're working at. So once you've found a comfortable angle, may as well try and keep it. So edge of brush around a 45-degree angle where you can. A more vertical, well braced move for areas where you can't do the side of the brush trick. And try and just use the tip of the brush. For preference, I would use a larger brush, but I don't really have anything suitable at the moment with a good point on, so I'm using this intense detail brush from the Army Painter. So since this is going to take a few hours, I will come back to you very, very soon in your time, probably tomorrow in mine. Well, there we have it. Super fast, super easy Imperial Fists. I believe that this guy's turned out pretty well, and I hope you agree. I've added a decal on the shoulder there for his chapter markings. I didn't add an assault badge on his other shoulder because I think it's kind of unnecessary, but you can if you want. I've painted on under his knee there his company markings, and it's green, so I believe that's 4th Company. Could be wrong. It's a while since I've bothered checking the markings on Marines. All I know is yellow/gold is 2nd, white is 1st, 5th is black, and the other 2 are red and green, and I always get those mixed up. But anyway, I would say that using this technique, if you pick up your Leviathan box on the Saturday, you can have all your Marines easily painted and based by the following Saturday with just a couple of hours each evening, and take Sunday off. Or in fact, you could build them all on Sunday and you could definitely have them all painted by Friday. But there you go. I hope you find this tutorial useful, and I hope that you'll watch some more of my tutorials. If you did enjoy the tutorial, don't forget to like, share and subscribe down below. Leave me a comment if you will. I also have a Discord server, link in the description down below, and if you wish to support me other than leaving the comments, likes and shares, which are absolutely awesome and more than adequate, I also have Ko-fi and Patreon. If you want to do something where it doesn't actually cost you a bean, but I will get something out of it, I have an affiliate link with Mighty Lancer Games, the friendly local game store in Bridlington, and there is a QR code on screen for that now, and a link in the description down below. I think that's all I got time for to tell you today. I honestly hope that you've enjoyed this. I love all your faces, and goodbye.